Thank you and welcome to the Cozy WebEd webinar. Today's topic is Top 7 Marketing Things Every Small Business Should Be Doing and will be presented by Nicole Burke. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to go over a few housekeeping items. My name is Adina Magda and I will be the webinar organizer for today. We want to make sure today's presentation is extremely valuable for you. So we ask that you submit all questions by clicking on the question button in the control panel and typing in your questions. Your questions will only be visible to me. I will collect all submitted questions and we will do a Q&A with Nicole Burke at the end of her presentation. Now for the main event, I would like to introduce Nicole Burke. Nicole is an energetic, strategic thinker with a proven track record for creating and executing marketing programs, events, and project plans that help companies generate leads, extend brand awareness, achieve stated goals, and provide a return on investment. With more than 15 years experience, Nicole brings valuable insights, lessons learned, and experiences from a wide variety of public and private organizations, including the Metro Health System, Cranes Cleveland Business, American Heart Association, to name a few. Nicole recently founded the marketing, event, and project management on-demand consulting firm called the Mod Pros. The Mod Pros provides marketing, event, and project-based consulting. Her team understands that companies sometimes need an experienced team member to tag in to help execute marketing campaigns or make sure an event goes off without a hitch, or create a plan to rebuild their website or test it thoroughly before launch. But that doesn't always have the budget for a full-time team member. Without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Nicole Burke.
Thank you, Adina. I appreciate that. And welcome everyone to today's webinar. I am so honored to be leading today's conversation. We're going to cover a lot of ground today. Here is an agenda of what we're going to try and cover in our hour together. I am going to go ahead and dig right in because, as you saw from the last slide, we have a lot to cover, and we're going to cover a lot of ground. My goal today is to help you understand how to get started and what to look for in your digital marketing strategy and execution. So I've compiled what I believe to be the 7 components.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, I heard a little bit of feedback, so I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. Adina, are we still
Yeah, everyone can hear. Yep.
Okay,
go ahead.
All right, so we're going to, as I said, we've compiled the top 7 components of a digital marketing strategy that I want to cover with you today. These are some of the most important parts, but by no means a total exhaustive list. And basically how I'm going to present today's conversation is that, as Adina said, I've had about 15 years in the business, and I'll be drawing from my real-life examples in both running marketing departments for several organizations around the area, as well as consulting with companies big and small. So my goal is to try and take all of these lessons learned and to help you leverage some of the opportunities here that I believe you have in front of you. Adina has been absolutely wonderful coaching me through this process, and she made absolute certain that I was comfortable sharing the materials I'm going to be sharing with you today. So please feel free to listen, take some notes of the things that jump out to you and that you think are most useful, but don't worry because the slides will be coming to an inbox near you soon. I will be taking out some of the client-specific confidential information that I don't want circulating, but I'll at least show it today and you can kind of take a mental note of it. And then most importantly, one of the things I wanted to just start with at the very beginning is to start the conversation kind of all on the same foot. The very most important thing that I have to say to all of my clients and prospects and people that I talk with is that there absolutely is no single marketing strategy that is the best for every single company. So there is no silver bullet out there. I'm here to tell you that, marketers are great and they're able to, come up with great one-liners and great statistics and things that will make you think that that is the silver bullet that you've been waiting for. But honestly, it comes down to you doing your due diligence and figuring out what makes the most sense for your company, given your position in the industry, what you're really trying to achieve, because every marketing tactic is different and has different results, and then what opportunities and resources you have within your your circle of your organization, your expertise, really make the most sense for you to be engaged in. So with that said, I am sorry if I'm disappointing some of you that have called in today hoping for the secret of success here, but really what I'm going to try and do is arm you with the process and the framework that will help you be able to create the unique strategy and plan that will work best for you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into what that plan really looks like. So all of my plans start with a discovery phase, and I would recommend this for anyone kind of doing the DIY thing on their own as well. So the discovery phase isn't super sexy, but it's honestly one of the most critical parts of the process. Whether you are a startup company or whether you're a veteran and you've been in business for 100 years, it's really important that as our times change, that you're really starting with a place that you're compiling research, you're compiling the outside metrics for you to be able to analyze and get insights about your brand. So you want to look at your competitors. You want to look at the characteristics, what they think of your company, your product, what they're doing in terms of their behavior, which social media sites they're on, where they're going to get information in terms of buying decisions, and what perceptions they have about you, your product, your brand. So really starting here, again, not the most sexy part of the process, but really starting here and wrapping your arms around this, removing sort of your bias of what you think it is, but really trying to understand how other people engage with, feel, and think about your brand is really the most critical part. So there's many different ways that you can go about this discovery process. Again, depending on your ultimate goals, it could be sort of a short, quick discovery. If you have the budget and you have really big goals, it may be a pretty robust sort of agency-led discovery process. But at the end of the day, the components that you're going to look at are all kind of the same. So when we start to think at looking at your, creating this marketing strategy, really looking at the analysis, we're going to be looking at your competitors. What's their competitive advantage? How does that compare to you, right? We're going to look at the market. Who's really your target market? Where do they go to find information? What are they doing online? How might we get in front of them? Those types of things. Your product or service profile, right? Is this a highly competitive industry, or do you have a very unique product offering? What's your price point? Are you the cheapest? Are you the most expensive? Are you somewhere in the middle? How are you promoting your product and service, right? And then one of the final steps that kind of wraps it all together is your SWOT analysis. So it's looking at your strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and your threats here. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this in a second. And again, I'm going to apologize now because we're going to run through about 45 slides, and we're going to do that fairly quickly. But a lot of this stuff is very standard. You will have my PowerPoint slides, and you can kind of dive in either with me, with your team members, or just do a little ancillary research online if there's anything that's a little confusing. So I want to give you an example. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to be providing the slides, and I'm going to strip out some of the specific examples I've used with other clients. I drop them in so you can kind of get a sense for what does this stuff really look like, right? Nicole, you're telling me I have to do this discovery process. I'm already really busy. I don't have time to do it. Make it easy for me, right? So here's an example of a competitive chart. You'll see, again, not the most highly designed thing. Doesn't need to be, though, right? Here we did this one for the Cleveland Site Center when we were redoing their website and their digital brand online. And here, it's just a simple spreadsheet, right? And we dropped in the Cleveland Site Center. We pulled out some specific metrics or areas that we wanted to compare against. And then we did it for a couple of their different competitors. This, given my screen size, you only see 3. I think we did about 10 of them for them. So you'll see that we kind of looked at, did they have a website? Did they talk about their mission online? How long have they been in business? Was that something that they really promoted? Did they offer any children's services? Those types of things. And so it's literally a simple spreadsheet, and we dropped in some text. The next example is just a pictorial representation, if you will, of a SWOT analysis. So here you'll see that, again, we're looking at kind of your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. When you start to do your competitive analysis, you can take some of those inputs that you're seeing from your competitors and drop those into key areas. So it would potentially go under your either strengths or weaknesses, depending on how you're faring with your competitors. Then when you start to look at your general kind of marketplace and industry, what's going on in your industry, right? Then you kind of move over to the other quadrant of your opportunities and threats and say, what's going on in, say, Cleveland, Ohio today? We have, a new public square, we have infrastructure coming in, we have new buildings. What opportunities do I have within that? And then your threats, same on the other side, right? So the first two are more internal and competitor-based, and then the last two are more things that are happening outside of your world, things that are happening on in the economy, the region, those types of things. So this just gives us a pictorial representation. From here, once we've done our research, we've figured out who our targets are, we've looked at who our competitors are, and we've really kind of distilled it down into who we're going to talk to. So these are two different examples, a little more designed here. Typically, I see a lot of customers that don't do this much of a design, but these were kind of fun, so I dropped them in. This was a marketing profile or personas that we created for Safeguard. And after doing all types of research, we basically distilled it down to 6 different vendor types that they were looking for. You can kind of see that we dropped in some kind of fun pictures that help you remember who they are, gave them some kind of catchy names that were memorable, and allowed us to sort of talk about who these individuals were, right? What age ranges they were, what they were looking for, what their drivers were, what their behaviors are, so we can understand how we can talk to them online, right? We understand that Richard the opportunist, he's probably not going online, right? He wants his own business, those types of things. So these are just some pictorial representations of things that would come out of a discovery. So you've done all your research, you distill that down into some sort of a competitive analysis, a SWOT analysis, and then you can start to put faces to your customers, who they are, what they do, where you can find them, basically. So again, you're going to gain a ton of insights through this, and some ways that you can do this when you think about different levers that you can pull in this discovery phase. You can do a brand audit. So that's as simple as collecting all of your marketing collateral. So you may have postcards, you may have flyers, you may have a website, you may have a blog, those types of things. It's kind of collecting all of those marketing pieces so that way you can do an audit of it, see what's working, make sure everything's consistent across the board. Some other ways that you can get really good insights into who your customers are and what they like and how they like to be talked to is to simply ask them. So there are all kinds of tools out there in the marketplace that make asking your customers how they feel about your product and what they want to know very easy. So there's tools like SurveyMonkey that are virtually free, if not very inexpensive, or just setting up different interviews with them, pulling people together in a room, asking them questions, getting their information. The same would be for your stakeholders, so your employees as well. The only caveat I would say here is that in my time in business, I find that you typically get a little bit more open, honest response from your employees or your stakeholders if you're not the one asking the question. So typically I would recommend some sort of an anonymous survey or interviews led by an outside agency or an outside person like myself that can go through and try and get to the actual honest opinion of these individuals. And then the one here that I skipped over purposely is your digital footprint analysis. This becomes our second step in the process and one of my favorite. So the second step that I'm saying, so you've done your discovery, you've done your work, you have your personas, you know who you're looking for. Now it's time for you to take the next step, which is to create a digital footprint assessment. And a digital footprint assessment is basically a picture of your entire footprint on the internet. So it could give you access or insights into your website, social media, directories, your partners, those types of things. Now you can do these audits or these assessments for yourself or your business. the process is basically the same. So there's going to be several slides on this. There's a lot of content on here. The bullets that you see here are meant more to be a general framework of what you should be looking for, kind of a questionnaire, if you will. Basically, you can take this questionnaire, drop it into a Word doc, and you can basically respond to these questions and kind of fill in your assessment for yourself. So the very first place you want to start is your website. You want to take a look at it and ask yourself, is the logo right? You would be surprised how many times that I've worked with companies that they have a different logo on their website than they have on their business cards and other things. Does the font and the style match the style offline? Are there broken pages or links on the website that just open to broken pages? That's terrible for your user experience. Is your content current, accurate, up-to-date, and optimized? Are you keeping up with blogs? And I purposely say it like that because I have so many clients who say, well, we have a blog, but then they haven't posted content for 4 years, right? So it's not enough just to have it or have a news section, but are you staying current? Is it relevant content that your customers want to read from you? How about contact information? It's amazing how many people don't have easy to find phone numbers and addresses for a physical location. So can customers find you, right? Do you have great lead gen forms that actually work and have somebody monitoring them? So do you have a contact us page, or are customers able to submit, say, a testimonial? Are they able to purchase online? All of those things are actually working. And do they work on various devices, right? So we now know that 80% of all internet users have a smartphone, 80%. And more than 50% of those users do mobile research of some sort before making any purchase. So is your website mobile friendly? Is it responsive? Can people find you and use you and be able to engage with you? And then is it optimized for search engines? And there's a couple different ways that you can optimize it. The metadata embedded for search crawls is one. We're going to talk about some others today. The next area that you're gonna assess in your digital footprint assessment is you're going to crawl all of your social media channels. So you're going to go out and you're going to figure out, okay, am I on Facebook? Am I on Twitter? Am I on LinkedIn? Okay, cool. Are all of my logos and imagery, are they all consistent with my current brand? Are they updated? Are they relevant? Am I posting content on a regular basis? Are you getting regular interaction? Again, it's not just enough to throw content out there, but are your customers actually engaging with it? Are they clicking? Are they commenting, right? Now, this concept of content posting and making sure that you're posting on a regular basis, now this is going to be different for everybody. There are some general statistics for Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter that basically say for, a business, you need to be posting this many times on average, right? But again, depending on your customer base, that may be too little or too much for them. So it's really important to kind of take those statistics and those averages with a grain of salt and figure out what's working for your audience, right? If you're getting regular interaction and you're posting 5 times a day and it's working for you, then obviously keep doing it. If you're posting 1 or 2 times a month and you're not getting any engagement, you may need to step it up a little bit. So it's important to kind of take those statistics with a grain of salt and kind of use them as a benchmark, but then look at your results and adjust accordingly. The next is, again, social media. Have you filled it out, right? Have you gone into the About section and have you made it really easy for people to find your phone number and email and be able to figure out how to get in contact with you? And is it a consistent voice? So I wanted to give a real-life example here. I'm not going to use any names. It's going to seem a little obvious, but it honestly wasn't for this person. So I worked with a new client who just started a new business. And as part of her overall marketing plan, she articulated to me that she wanted to be known as a luxury brand in the marketplace. It's a fairly competitive space, so she really wanted to be known for her expertise, credibility, and class. Yet, on her personal Facebook page, which she used very infrequently, she would frequently post about how she was out, going out drinking beers with friends, drinking a lot, excessively. And so if you were really paying attention, the fact that she posted so infrequently and the fact that her personal page is so closely tied to her business page, you wouldn't get the perception of necessarily luxury. You would get more of a perception of party and fun. And so it's not to say that that's not the right thing for her to be posting, but you really have to look at this consistent voice, right, to make sure that whatever you're communicating is consistent across all channels and that it speaks to what your ultimate goal is. So again, not to say that people can't be fun and post pictures about drinking and going out, but just make sure that it works within your entire kind of picture. Look holistically at this. And then make sure you're taking advantage of all the tools. We're going to talk a little bit more when we dive into social media in a few slides about how they're all different and pros and cons of each. But each also have very unique tool sets. If you're using Facebook, let's say, Facebook has a way to post events that have a specific layout and look and features and functions. If you're posting about job postings, LinkedIn has special criteria for that and can help elevate it and position it a little bit differently than a general kind of status update. Same with photo galleries and slides and those types of things that you can get on Facebook and other things that I think you want to be aware of and try and maximize because it just adds more value to your content. The last thing you're going to look at here on this slide, and I think we have one more, is your directory listings. So if you think back, if you're old enough like myself, you know, when most people used to go to the Yellow Pages, you know, that's how you figured out how to find people. Well, there's directories online now. And I have a slide later that gives you some examples of all the directories you should be going out and checking. But basically, you want to go out and see which directories have you listed today, and do those logos and styles and conversation, does it sound like you, right? There are some that allow you to post photos. There are some that allow you to really change it up and make it your own. And so making sure that you know, you're going through and you know where you're listed and that it's exactly the way you want it to be and it's not just out there. Because a lot of directories online, the second you start your business, and I know this because I just officially launched this LLC about 6 weeks ago, I'm everywhere and I'm getting, you know, mail from everybody and everyone has a directory for me, but I have to go out and claim it now and make sure that it's saying the things that I want it to say. And here, so, you know, again, making sure it has all of your contact information. Have you ever Googled your business? You know, Google is amazing. There's so many amazing tools out there on Google, and there is a Google Your Business, and you want to see what comes up, right, and make sure that any unclaimed listings are there, that you're claiming those, that you review the content that's out there, and you make sure to keep it accurate and up to date. And then the last part is doing some sort of an analysis to find out which referring or backlinks you have. So, and I apologize, if you hear that in the background, I have a dog that just decided to join the webinar. And so that's what the background noise is. So bear with me. He's an elderly dog, and so I keep him by my side frequently. Anyway, back to referring links and backlinks. So you want to check to see who is referring a link to you and make sure that it makes sense, right? If any of you are familiar with how search started and the ways that people would game the system 10, 15 years ago, is that basically they would go out and put referring links and backlinks everywhere because that looked to Google like you were a credible, linkable website. Today, it's not just important to have backlinks, but it's important to make sure that they make sense, that because the credibility of the site that has this link plays into your credibility. And then do you have links on your site, right? You may have certain partners, you may have different sources or resources that you are referring your client base to, so you want to make sure that who you're linking to makes sense because it plays into your whole picture. All right. So here's an example of a digital footprint assessment. We did this one for IdeaStream. They're in the process of working with us to redo their website. You can see, again, it doesn't have to look super sexy, doesn't have to be overwhelming in terms of, you know, lots of reports that you have to write. It's a simple sort of go through this checklist and write what you see. So you'll see, we went out to the website, and some of the people that we had go through and look at the website said the navigation was difficult to read. It was horizontal, it was tough, it was really hard to use on mobile. So several different people had inputs into this. That's why we see the multiple buttons. And then you'll see the second part of this is the action, right? So these were guiding principles for us to use when we sat down to redo the website. So we basically said, okay, we need to have more direct navigation labels. We need to have breadcrumbs. Nobody knew where they were in the website, those types of things. So you'll see that we just kind of went through, whoops, went backwards, and we basically pulled out what was working and what wasn't. Now, you may be able to do this digital footprint assessment, but not be able to come up with the action items. But, that's where different partners like myself or others in the market might be able to help fill those in. Or if you have experts within your organization, maybe a developer or a designer that can come in and help kind of guide you down this path. The idea is that you take the results of this digital footprint assessment, and then you basically start to prioritize these, right? The expectation is that you can't do everything overnight, so you would want to sort of break out the things that are low-hanging fruit, those that are mission critical, and then those that maybe can just be future phase type stuff. So, anything that might be stopping your customers from being able to contact you, I would say that those are probably mission critical. And then there's going to be some quick hits, right? If there's a broken link, just figure out how to change it, right? There may be some little quick wins that you can get. All right. So this next section we're going to talk about is website design and accessibility. So in this section, we're going to talk to, some of the recent changes that have happened with the fact that now everyone's on a mobile device, right? So we need to make sure that people can browse and use your site regardless of the device that they're coming from. So you want to make sure that you have an updated design, your website is optimized. It's an absolute must, right? And there's a couple different reasons why. It's not just because, we want it to look good and, oh, that person on the smartphone, right? But the number one bullet that I have here is Google does prioritize mobile-friendly websites. If you think about what Google's ultimate mission in life is, Google is there to serve the searcher. So they want to deliver the best content, the most relevant content, the content that's going to make that searcher most happy. And the way to do that are sites that are well designed and are mobile friendly. So it helps build credibility with your audience. If you have a website that looks great and is user friendly for them, they're going to feel a certain way about that. There are studies that also show that it can increase conversion rates. Again, if they can use it, they're more likely to fill out the forms or make a purchase or those types of things. You can reach people more quickly, right? So it's kind of going back to that first bullet there. But also, people are likely to share it. They're likely to use it if it's user-friendly. And your business is perceived as more modern and relevant, and you get to stay ahead of the competition. So before making wide sweeping changes to your website, because I know if there are some customers or some of you out there that are thinking, gosh, my website is horrible. What do I even do? This just seems like a lot. You're basically telling me that I have to throw out my entire website. I'm not necessarily saying that, but I think that looking at your digital footprint, then circling back to what you said your ultimate goals are and how customers are using, what their behaviors are, that may be something you need to consider. A couple different things for you to think about in this phase, though. So, our research is great and whatever, but you also want to look at, your Google Analytics, right? So Google Analytics should be able to tell you about the usage of your website. Which pages are most sticky, where referrals are coming from, what your most popular pages are, because maybe you just need to make some specific changes to, say, the home page and the contact page, because really that's all people are going to, and if you can get those working well for you, you can have some time on the others, right? The content optimization. So again, we kind of talked about this, but you want to make sure that you have an unbiased, realistic view of what's going on. Is your website current, or do you really need to make changes, right? You need to have an honest conversation with yourself. And the next one kind of plays into this, your content management ability. Sometimes I find that customer or companies' websites aren't current and aren't optimized because they don't have the control. With how many different new platforms there are in the marketplace, this absolutely shouldn't be an issue anymore, because there are so many different tools for you to be able to access and make changes to your website. So maybe you need to think about that, right? If you just had the control, would you do it? Does the design align with your brand, or does it need a major overhaul? If you just switch to, say, an off-the-shelf product, right? Years ago, 10 years ago, everything was a custom-built website. There weren't a whole lot of technology stacks that allowed you to have content management features. Now, WordPress really changed the game, Drupal changed the game, but even more so, the Squarespaces and the Shopifys and the Wix are really changing the game, because for a fraction of what you would have spent on a website, 8 years ago, people would have spent $25,000, $30,000 on a website. You can get a Squarespace and a Wix website for a couple of $1,000s today, and it gives you 100% of the control. They're typically, off the shelf, they come with very nice security features, training, support, those types of things. So maybe it's asking yourself, is that the path you should be going down? And then if nothing else, you need to make sure that you have insights into your technology stack. So whatever your current website is, let's say it's Drupal. Is it up to date? Are your plugins up to date? Is your server up to date? Is it secure? Are you getting backups? Those types of things. So you need to kind of be asking these questions. And this all plays into your website needs to be secure, it needs to be available, and it needs to be accessible to your clients. So this is part of the mix that you should be looking at when you're thinking about your marketing strategy. The next section, we're on to step 4. We're doing pretty good, about halfway there. So this next section is content and SEO. So I have to say, out of the 7 areas, this is one of the most important, but yet the hardest, I think, for all of my clients. They get it, they understand, and they've bought into the mantra that content is king. But yet, I think in the 6-7 years I've been consulting with different clients, small and big, I've only had one client that ever really fully bought into a fully baked out strategy for content. And that's a company called Coleman Wick. And the thing is that you really have to start with the end in mind with your content, because if you're just going out there throwing content on the wall and seeing what sticks and really having no strategy and not having a process and a schedule in place, a lot of people, what I find is content is hard and people just stop doing it. So the difference at Coleman Wick is that Odell really started with the end in mind. He did his research, he did his due diligence, and he stuck to the execution strategy. He really wanted to be a thought leader in this space, and so he committed himself to producing weekly content that was posted on his website and then emailed to this marketing list. And still, to this day, he is one of the best that I've seen, and it's hard. If you're going to do it, I highly recommend that you understand and you circle back to those business objectives that you set up, who you're talking to, and really trying to create pieces that are compelling to those users, that are fully optimized with the right keywords, that have value for them so they continue to come back and engage and share, that it is search engine friendly, that if you're having, let's say you have an image heavy article, like you do an infographic, making sure that you have the right metadata and alt tags underneath that, making sure that there's some way for those search bots to be able to crawl it and index it for search. And then, like I said, if you're going to do it, I highly recommend that you put together a strategy here and you stick to it. And so I wanted to kind of show you, I'm going to skip forward. I don't have a slide on that. So We are going to show in a little bit for social media, sort of setting up your content buckets, setting up your schedule, and then help setting yourself up for success, and they will be very similar to this. So I will make sure to reference that and kind of point back that it can be for content for your website as well as content for your social media outlets. All right, so tools to consider to use when you're starting to think of how do you even execute your content, or how do you evaluate what's there. So one of the tools that's amazing, again, I feel like I'm really promoting Google, but it is incredible. Google has a number of different vehicles for you to look at. Google AdWords is great for looking up keywords, so you can basically figure out what the search volume is of those keywords and then try to pepper those throughout your content. Google Webmaster Tools, there is just a plethora of information here. You can go out and get resources to help improve, your searchability of your website. Google Analytics, we talked about it earlier, but understanding again, you first do your keyword research, but then circle it back and close the loop to say which keywords are actually driving traffic to your website, which are most searched for you and are resulting in conversion. And then Google Trends, kind of step back and say, what's going on in the world around me, right? What's going on in Google search in this industry, in this marketplace? One of the things to consider setting up here, and it will play again when we get to social media, is like a Hootsuite, a marketing automation tool. So this particular marketing automation tool allows you to, let's say, promote a blog or a news article that you post on your website, and then it disseminates it to all of your social media accounts that you have hooked up. So it's one of the tools that I would recommend for you if you're doing a content strategy and you're also doing social media to help post once essentially and push out to all of the channels that you have. SEMrush is basically a resource where you can go in and do some competitive analysis, some site auditing, advertising research, and more. And then don't forget about your social media dashboard, so kind of close that loop there. If you post a blog or you post something on your website and then you share it on social media, make sure that you kind of cross-check it on both, right? See how it's really faring on your website versus social media, and make some changes and determinations from there. So since we've been talking a little bit about social media, let's kind of dive in here and see, what you should be doing specifically here. I kind of dropped in this slide similar to our disclaimer at the beginning. No two social media websites are the same, right? So there's absolutely no one secret formula or mix of these that is going to work for everybody. Everyone is different. Everyone has its own strengths and weaknesses. So what you really need to do is figure out, again, discovery, who you're looking for, where they're going online, and figure out the one that works best for you or the mix that works best for you. So you really want to choose the right one. I have so many clients that come in and say, well, I had to be on all of them, or my competitors are on every single one, and I just felt like I had to do that. I can understand that sentiment, but if you're on all of them and you're doing nothing, it's not helping you. So it's really important for you to make sure that the social media makes sense and that you set up the time that it takes to do it correctly. Make sure, again, that it comes back to who you're trying to target, and make sure that those people are actually on that social media network and that you keep up with it. Because you want to make sure that you're in front of the right people at the right time and you're saying the right things. And I see so many clients, excuse me, that just cannot keep up a consistent presence, and it's just not the space that you want to be in. I have another kind of story to share on this. It was interesting, and it's going to seem a little obvious to you when I say it, but it honestly happened, and it's something that, because this new client of mine did not have a strategy in place, I honestly feel like she didn't understand why it wasn't a good idea. So let me tell you a little bit about it. So I was working with a customer that was interested in doing some digital marketing, and she had already set up her Facebook and Twitter accounts, and yet told me that when we sat down to look at the personas, that her primary targets were actually blue-collar and trades workers and the Amish. And so, you know, we were already going to have to look at some of those social media accounts to make sure that they made sense. And as I went back to start doing the research, I got a phone call later that night and said she actually wanted to add Snapchat to the mix. If any of you have ever used Snapchat, or have, for those of you who have not, it's a popular mobile app that allows you to send video and pictures. So think about that. It's video and pictures, and one of our primary audiences is the Amish. So this is why it's so mission critical that you really start with that discovery up front, and you make sure to constantly keep those personas and your competitors and what your objectives are at the forefront, so you don't just lose sight and say, well, all of my customers are online, or excuse me, all of my competitors are online, and I need to be there too, so I'm going to do every single social media that they are. Well, if it doesn't make sense that you can't keep it up, and it might not make the right sense for your particular mix of audience, that's why it's very important that you kind of circle back to that discovery phase and make sure that everything aligns. So if we go back, so here's a quick kind of overview of some general categories that I would say the social medias fit into. So you have kind of your general kind of catch-all, your Twitter, your Facebook. You know, you have your location-based, your Squarespace, your Yelps. You have your niche-based, you have your business focus, right? So they all kind of fit into one of these categories, and what you need to ask yourself is, does it make sense based on what I said I was trying to achieve? Do your current customers and prospects actually spend time there? Do you enjoy posting on these social medias, right? If you don't enjoy it, it will feel like a chore, right? Because it's time consuming. And after doing your research, you know, do you understand it? I have a lot of clients that have set up social media accounts and have never bothered to actually figure out how they work and actually figure out how to harness the power of these tools. So part of it is not just saying that you have a Facebook page, but it's really committing yourself to understand the power of each of these tools, because if you can leverage it, it's incredible. So one of the examples I wanted to throw up here is, we're going to pretend like, you know, I had a customer that said, you know, we're going to do Facebook postings. You know, is it just enough that we can just throw up cute pictures and, you know, puppy pictures and watch the likes roll in? Well, not really for small businesses, right? I mean, that's fine to be doing on your personal page, and every now and then it's okay to be doing on Facebook, but you need to be more strategic than that, right? It's important that you're constantly looking back to what you decided in your discovery was most important to you in terms of a result, right? Do you want likes? If you want likes, then that's a great metric. If it's more engagement and conversion, then you want to come up with a content strategy. So here are a couple examples of content categories that I think will work for most businesses. So you might be posting announcements if you hire new staff, if you have a staff member who's celebrating an anniversary, a baby, those types of things. Behind the scenes photos, right? One of the easiest ways to tell what your business does and what makes you so great is to show people. You know, I have the luxury that when I work with companies, I'm sometimes planning events, or I'm going out and I'm shooting a commercial, right? So I take a lot of photos of me setting up events and the behind the scenes video shoots and those types of things, because I don't necessarily have to tell people that's what I do. They can see it. And those are always really cool and they get a lot of engagement. You want to be thinking of maybe just kind of fun quotes or holidays, right? Everyone loves Donut Day and those types of things. Are you doing something cool, or do you just want to tell people that you're aware of what's going on in the world around you and kind of make it fun? Then, of course, if you're doing blog posts or curated content, you know, and curated content is basically if you have like a blogger that you follow. I read the Seth Godin blog, so I may post, you know, a quote or something that I read that I think might be valuable for my users, and I'll kind of just cross-post that or curate that content. And then here's an example of a social media schedule. So we said we were going to be on Facebook. We have our categories. We have a pretty good idea of what we're going to do. Now you just put together a plan. Again, not super sexy. This is just a quick and dirty example that I produced for a client. They had several different media outlets they wanted to post for. You can see that we scheduled out when they were going to hit, so we had consistent content throughout the week, but we were also kind of respecting when works best for each of those social media outlets. So created a calendar, and then from there, you want to set up your plan, right? So here is an example of a 30, 60, 90 schedule. So basically, what am I going to do on month 1, month 2, and month 3 at the end of the quarter? So we started from scratch with this particular client. They first needed to start building a library of images and content. So we took that first couple of weeks of the plan, and we basically said we're going to create 2 or 3 messages we're going to do. We're going to build up our library of content before we ever get out there, because we want to make sure we're set up for success. And then we have, what are we going to focus on? What does success look like? Who's responsible? And you'll see that this was like a various draft of it. That's why it's not 100% kind of baked out with who owns what, but you get the gist. And then some tips here. Social media is so powerful, but it does take time. So it's important, and that's why I caution people by just saying I have to be on every social media site, I have to do all of these things, because if you're not doing them well, it's not helping you. So it's important, if you are going to go down this path, I recommend you block out time every week. I would start with at least an hour, and this will allow you time to actually produce the new content. I'd look for ways to automate whenever possible. Facebook is really cool in that you can pre-schedule things, you can backdate some things if you happen to miss them. A tool like Hootsuite will allow you to post once and it pushes out the content to multiple sources. I also highly recommend you maybe block out some time to create a backlog of evergreen content. And what I mean by this is it's not time sensitive. It may just be some quick tips from you as, say, a florist. Here's how you keep your flowers, living longer, or here's how you get, the best wear out of your clothes by washing and drying this way. Think of things that aren't time sensitive that can just be sitting in your backlog, and on those weeks when you get super busy, because it happens to everybody, that you can just pull one of those out and drop it in. But you want to set yourself up for success. And then just like everything we've talked about today, you want to make sure that you're constantly measuring your results and you adjust and you learn as you go. So around that same time every week when you're writing the content, take a look at things. Take a look at how things are progressing. Maybe set up some of your notifications on these things. It'll tell you, Facebook will tell you, you're trending up or down, or if you just did X, it'll help you really improve engagement. So make sure you're setting aside time for that. We're on to 6 here. So we're going to talk a little bit about backlinks and directory listings. So for those of you who might not be familiar with backlinks, basically it's just any link that's coming into your website. So basically it could be one of the directories we talked about. It could be another partner or a client that has utilized your services and maybe is giving a testimonial, a shout out if you're referenced in any type of blog. So it's basically something that's driving users to your website from another website. The thing you want to think about here is you want to think about the art, the authority, and the relevance. And what I mean by that is, again, when we talked about kind of backlinking strategies from years ago, they were really used to game the system and game the search engines. And now you really need to be strategic with them. You need to make sure that they make sense, they're credible, they have authority in that space, and there's a reason why they're linking to you, and it's not just like you've paid them or it's a reciprocal link. Google will be looking at that and looking at the credibility of that and making sure that it's relevant, because again, they want to serve number one, their searcher. There's a couple different tools that you can use to see what backlinks are out there and who's connecting to your website. So these are some of the free tools that you can use here. And then basically, if there are some that aren't out there, reach out to those organizations and see what you can do about having them taken down. Also, as part of the strategy is directory listings. So again, we talked about kind of the phone book. People used to pick it up, look for contact information, see who was out there in that space. There are a ton of different directory listings online now. Here are some of them. It's important for you to kind of take a look at them and make sure that they make sense for your industry, right? If you're a service provider and you provide carpet cleaning services, Angie's List is great for you, right? If you are, I'm looking at some of the others, Yelp, right? If I'm a hair salon, I would definitely want to be there, and I want to encourage some of my best customers to go out and do listings for me. So each of these is sort of different, and they offer a different value and sort of a niche, and so it's important for you to kind of take a look at these, see what makes sense. And then, like I said, if there are any listings that are out there that you have not claimed, make sure that you're going out there and you're claiming them as your own. And the content is exactly what you want it to be. All right, I skipped forward a little bit. Okay, so my pro tip here is that sort of like the others, right, this takes time as well. It's important for you to have a good plan in place before you start your directory listings, because they can be very time consuming. So typically what I do for clients is that I will create sort of a template directory listing, and it will have all my versions of my logo, horizontal, vertical. It will have all my contact information, kind of a shortened description and then a longer one. It will have key staff members, certain pages that I want to call out, and that way I have everything 100% done. There are going to be some caveats here, but then I can go out and I can do them much more quickly, effectively, and make sure they're all consistent, because I've already done all of the groundwork and I have it all put together, and then I can just start to execute. And then use the same keywords that appear on your website, again, kind of making sure that you're driving the right people, keywords that have been working, and then keep your audience in mind, right? You want to make sure that it's not just constantly a sales pitch, right? I'm so great. I've been in business for 100 years. Think about what's in it for them. What is the critical problem that you solve for them? How do you make their lives better? By that slight tweak in the messaging, I think you'll find that your directory listing will stand out from the rest. All right, and now we've come to step 7. So we've talked about this at a lot of the steps throughout the process. We also looked at it in the very beginning because we sort of took a look at what's going on today. But the key to any of these good strategies, like I said, is there is no one secret method that works for every company regardless. So the key is really to figure out what your ultimate goals are and then to measure as you go. So you'll want to make sure that Google Analytics is set up on your website, period. So you want to make sure that you do that. And then Google Analytics is a beast, okay? There are a lot of different metrics. There's a lot going on there. But if you focus on these, pretty much like you're going to have insights into what's going on. So total visits. This is just the big picture. How many people are coming to your website? The new sessions, this is the metric that will help you understand who's new and who's a recurring visitor. The channel specific. So again, this will let you know, is the stuff I'm doing on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, an external blog, those types of things, are they driving the types of traffic that I want? Bounce rate. How many people come to your website and drop off without going to any other page, right? This is not a good metric. So we want to keep this bounce rate low, and the ways to do it are to make sure that you're communicating about your brand effectively on the directory listings, on social media, on your paid announcements, so that way they have a clear idea of what they're coming for, and then you're putting them in the right page to make sure that you can give them the best experience and they won't drop off after one. And then conversion rates. If you have some sort of a sign up for a newsletter, or if you've made a purchase or those types of things, you can kind of look at conversion rates. And then additional metrics to watch. So if you're doing email, I've listed those here. One thing I highly recommend to you is that if you haven't set up Google Alerts already, make sure that you set those up for your company, for your competitors, and your clients. I set them up to go to a Gmail email address that I rarely use, so it doesn't clutter up my regular email address. But when I have some time, you know, when I'm on the treadmill, I'm looking for something to read, I may go out and see what's going on in my world. You want to look at search engine rankings, SEMrush again, coming back to that. It's got a lot of information in the free version and even more in the paid version. And then social media, you want to look at things like likes, content engagement, shares, LinkedIn, followers, you know, engagement, how many people are engaging with your content. Same with Twitter. And then quickly, because it looks like we have about 5 minutes left, but I'll stay on the line if there are people that have questions. So we covered a lot of stuff today, and it was just the highlights on this. Like I said, I'll provide this PowerPoint, and there's plenty more information either online or that I might be able to provide to help you really launch this process. But I really recommend that you take the time to do some sort of a discovery process. It can be a DIY, just throw up a spreadsheet, get some competitive analysis, ask some employees to fill out a survey, ask some customers to fill out a survey, get some insights so it's not just your personal bias. Then do a digital assessment or a digital audit. Go out, quickly go through all of that checklist of the questionnaires that I gave you, see what's really outstanding and what really needs to be addressed. The same with your website. Can I use it? Can I get to it on any mobile device? Can I do everything that you expect me to be able to do? Content. Don't just do it because it's the buzzword now and everyone's all hyped up on content marketing if you're not going to set up a plan and follow it. So figure out how to work a plan that works for you and not just jump on the latest bandwagon. Social media. Again, if you're going to do it, don't just feel like you have to do all of them. Do the ones that make the right sense for your business and for your audience and do them well. And then backlinks and directory links. Make sure that you know who's linking to your website and that they're saying all the right things you want them to. Claim those unclaimed listings. Go out, you know, make them say exactly what every other web property that you have. And then measure and review and analyze, right? We talked about the digital footprint. I recommend you do it maybe once a quarter, twice a year, something like that, because as you're making all of these changes, you need to go out and see how things are faring and what additional changes may need to happen. And you're going to be looking at your results. So you're going to be seeing if things are working or not, or if you still need to make tweaks. And with that, I think we've gone through the entire presentation, and I will turn it back over to Adina to see if there are any questions.
All right, and I just encourage everyone to ask any questions during this Q&A portion. Feel free to type it in the chat function or in the question panel. I get them, and then I will ask them to Nicole on your behalf. So Nicole, I do have one question that someone sent in. What are the best times and dates to post on social media based on your opinion?
Sure. So there are, they vary based on the social media account that you're talking about, but in general, I find that depending on your industry, Tuesdays and Thursday mornings are really good, as well as surprisingly Sundays. If you think about it, a lot of business executives are they're getting a jump on the week on Sundays. There typically isn't they're not getting bombarded by multiple emails. So typically if you send out kind of emails on Sunday, you post on social media, I would say Tuesdays and Thursdays, you're in a really good spot.
Okay. And then another question, between email marketing, social media, and direct marketing pieces, sending them out, which one do you think is the most effective and the one that we should focus on? What is the trend with all those platforms?
Can you say the ones again? I heard email, social media, and something.
And direct marketing, like sending out a direct marketing piece, which seems to be the one that gets the most traction out of those three.
So again, the way I would answer it is you have to figure out what your ultimate goal is and who your target market is. They all have average conversion rates, and of those, they're wildly different. The cost is wildly different of those as well. It all comes back to what you're trying to achieve. I'm a firm believer in that I have my personal kind of beliefs on which ones I prefer and how I like to be marketed to. But at the end of the day, you need to weigh what the average conversion rate of each is and what they're best suited to do, and determine if it's the right strategy for you. I also encourage a mix of them. And part of this, as you'll find in here, is kind of putting some things out there in kind of pilot programs, figuring out what works best for you and your audience, measuring those results, and adjusting as you go.
Perfect. And then I have another question, and I'm sure I know what the answer is. It says, do you have any local companies that we can hire to help us reconstruct our website in Cleveland, Ohio? So someone's asking you if you know.
A number of them, yes. There are a number, and I think Adina said it that way because the firm I work very closely with, we actually just redid Cozy's website of one of the many that we've done. So there are many out there. I think one of the things I would encourage you to do, obviously we can take this conversation offline and I can kind of throw out some names and suggestions there, but is to consider, again, going back to, and I'm going to try and pull up this slide, going back to when you're really taking a look at your website and doing your analysis to figure out what's working today. That will help guide you down the right path to make sure that the provider that you go with can provide the right services, right? There are some that do content management really well. There are others that do e-commerce really well. There are some that just do your kind of quick marketing brochure websites like your Squarespaces and your Shopifys. So it's really understanding what you have today, distilling down what's not working about it, and then making sure that that aligns with the right partner, because there are many web development firms in the Northeast Ohio region, and I would encourage you to make sure that that individual can achieve the goals that you're looking for.
Perfect. And as of right now, I have no other questions for you. Just a reminder to everybody on the phone, Nicole will be sending me the slides to distribute to everyone after the webinar ends. So I will be emailing them to everybody along with her contact information. So feel free to reach out to her after this webinar if you could use her expertise. Her contact information will be on the slide also. So feel free to reach out to her. And thank you so much, Nicole, for all your time today. We really appreciate having you present to us today. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody.